You're listening to the Future of Convenience podcast, brought to you by Global Convenience Store Focus, featuring senior retail executives and experts in the global convenience, fuels, and mobility retail industry. Welcome to the Future of Convenience podcast. I'm Carolyn Schnare, and I'm joined by my co-host Harry Milloff, the CEO of the Mosley Group. Harry's worked with hundreds of restaurants and convenience chains all over the world, and he and his team optimize the designs of food service programs for many, and they say they lead the way in the Store of the Future initiatives. It's great to have you with me again, Harry.
Hey, Carolyn, how are you today?
I think we're both excited to dive in beyond our usual food service discussions to speak today with an industry icon who has worked with convenience companies around the world before bringing his expertise to the U.S. We'll be exploring the evolution of convenience stores as food service destinations, the role of technology in consumer experience, and the future of mobility in the American market. Before we get started, I wanted to ask, if you run a fuel, mobility, or convenience business, here's a question. Are your forecourts leaking profits? Unplanned downtime, slow repairs, and inefficient maintenance could be costing you more than you think. That's where Urgent from Techniche comes in. It's the only complete asset and maintenance management platform built specifically for retailers like you. Over 40,000 locations worldwide trust Urgent to keep their business-critical assets running smoothly, automating maintenance, improving contractor performance, and giving them complete visibility and control. With Urgent, you can increase asset uptime, enhance customer experience, and drive more revenue, all while reducing costs and avoiding unexpected breakdowns. Visit technichegroup.com/urgent and take control of your operations today. Harry, I'm pleased you could join me on this episode where normally we talk about food, but today we're going to do that and a little more and talk with a convenience industry veteran who has worked with convenience companies around the world. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Of course. Our guest today is John Carey, President and CEO of EG America, which owns and operates more than 1,500 convenience stores and fuel retailers across the United States. Company operates 10 banners in 30 different states that include Cumberland Farms, Certified Oil, Fast Track, Quick Shop, Loaf and Jug, Minute Mart, Quick Trip, Sprint, Tom Thumb, and Turkey Hill. EG America is a subsidiary of United Kingdom-based EG Group, founded in 2001 by the Isa family. John has been with EG America since 2020, and before that, he's led teams at ADNOC, BP, Castrol, Unilever, and more. So, John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Harry, and very nice to meet you guys.
Well, thanks for coming on. So Harry gave a rather quick but nice long list of wonderful places you've worked, but I'd love to hear from you about the journey that brought you to where you are today.
Well, I mean, I think Harry's probably summarized it better than I could. I was born and brought up in Ireland in a small town called Kilkenny, and I went to university there. I have a strange background in that I started school very young and therefore went to university at the age of 16. So kind of everything happened quite early for me in my life. I did chemical engineering, which is not kind of your traditional route into retailing, I guess. Studied chemical engineering in Dublin. And then from there, I actually went, and my first job was, would you believe, running a gold mine in South Africa. So that was kind of back in the late 80s. And from there, came back and worked with Unilever on their business with adhesives. And from there, then I joined Burma Castrol in 1990 and became CEO of their car care division, a company called Simonite. And that was back in 1990 at the age of 28. So I've kind of from there been doing chief executive roles across Castrol, looking after the Castrol global businesses, around looking after the BP gas business, LPG business, and then finally ending up in the retail and refining business, running the retail and refining business on the west coast of the US, and subsequently running the retail business for BP. And from there, then in 2017, joined ADNOC to lead their IPO, which was their first real international IPO. And subsequently, there's been a lot of those. So hopefully we were kind of the outlier, the beginner of that process for the Middle East. And that was their retail business. So from there, then I came back into EG as a non-executive director and subsequently became an executive director again, came back into the work in the US.
That is very impressive, John. And you've clearly seen a lot. You've led a lot in many different industries. And what's so interesting is culture is so important when we're talking about a meaningful team. And in all the different roles that you've played, I've imagined that you've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And can you talk a little bit about the culture at EG America today? Thinking about it also as it shapes into the future. What role does culture play within your organization?
Wow, it's a big question, Harry. I think the simple answer for that is, I know it's a cliche, but it's a cliche that I've lived my life by, which is culture does eat strategy for breakfast. And the first time I saw that actually goes back to the days, would you believe, in Ford. I was the senior executive for BP connected to Ford. And Alan Mullally wrote that up on the board when he joined the company as he was trying to change it. And it stuck with me. Uh, in this business, and actually I would argue in all the businesses I've run, strategy is the easy piece. I always have a belief that if you can't determine the strategy of your company uh, within a week, you either have the wrong people in the room or you have the wrong strategy. The work is on the culture. It's on how do you implement it. Spend. I would suggest to most companies spend a bit less time on the strategy and a lot more time on the culture, on the implementation, because you the strategy is about sitting down, listening to the market, identifying it, and having a dynamic approach. And it's important. Don't get me wrong; it's really important. But without the culture of a business, without the winning the hearts and minds in an organization, you don't have a hope. If your store managers, if your colleagues at the front line don't buy into what you're trying to do, then you will not succeed because the customers will not understand it because it won't be explained to them, it won't be lived, and so it's everything. And I don't underestimate that. Is not I don't see that as a big statement. It is everything. We had a conference recently. We went to the New England Gillette Stadium, and we spent 3 days as senior leaders. And I would say we spent the vast majority of talking about the how. What is it that we need to change and instill in this business to drive and deliver for our customers?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that the culture that you create and that you embody and live within your organization is one that your customers innately feel. It directly impacts the guest experience and how they interact with your brand and with your stores. And it's interesting, when we talk about the guest expectations of today, they're evolving so fast. And guests today are looking at enhanced food service offerings. They're
Mhm.
looking at frictionless experiences. I mean, and all of these kind of bells and whistles and kind of new evolutions. They just can't sacrifice on value and speed at the end of the day. That's some of the fundamentals. And I'm curious, what your thoughts are on how your brands will evolve into the future. Do you see any fundamental shifts in how your customers are engaging with your stores?
Yes, a huge shift. In terms of the market, if you look at our market, tobacco sales are going to reduce. We know that that's reality. Fuel demand will reduce. We talk about EVs all the time, but actually the biggest impact on our markets is, fuel economy of existing, you know, gas cars, and that's the reality here. That's has a much bigger impact on our business, and that's real. That's already in place. Uh, Coffee sales, even if you look at coffee sales post COVID, they're dropping. The majority of people now drink cold coffee rather than hot coffee. So, all of those are changing. The market consolidation, the rising operational costs, those things are all changing. The consumers are looking for healthier options. They're looking for loyalty. We are today actually launching our new loyalty platform, and it is a huge step from the one we already have. So even that is very different. And the adoption of mobile technologies are huge. the one thing I keep saying to my organization is that the status quo is not an option for us. And I think it's a really critical mindset we need to get into our business, because the customers and of today are not the same as the customers of tomorrow. Uh, are certainly their needs are not the same, and the successful companies today are not this guaranteed to be the successful companies. 20, 30 years ago, you could look at the top companies in the uh, stock exchange and they didn't change. Today, they change all the time. And that gives you a real indication of the vulnerability, if you want to say, of being a leader. You have to keep changing and you have to keep moving forward. You can't sit back and say, we've got it, we've solved it. We our strategy is the right strategy, because anyone who had a strategy pre-COVID, I can guarantee you, if it's the same strategy today, that's a company that's failing.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and I think you're right, because people, it doesn't matter how they get to your store, they're just changing. We have our different mindsets, and it was interesting where you brought up the loyalty program, because I know that Cumberland Farms has been a leader with their program forever. But so I want to talk about that a little bit too. But I want to go back to food service. You were talking about coffee a little bit.
Mhm.
Where do you see your well, I guess this is kind of a big question, so you can take it whichever way you want. Where do you see food service today, and where would you like to see it going within your organizations?
I will be honest, I don't think we're good enough today. And one of the things we have to do as an organization is be honest with each other. My job, my executive leadership's job is to solve problems. And to solve problems, you need to identify the problems. I guess, the benefit of spending nearly 40 years in industry, not only do you feel very old, but the only benefit, I guess, is that you learn quite a bit if you're looking around. And the amount of times I think people sit in the room and live either in denial or don't actually know the problem they're trying to solve is quite frightening. In the food service, I think I would say from our perspective, we have a long way to go, and we have changed our team. We brought in new leadership into the team, and that's not just the solution. We're investing in it. Harry talked about at the beginning, he listed off all of the brands we have. I think that is both a strength and a weakness for us. I think we have too many. And one of the things we're doing is to actually really identify the best of everything we've got, but strengthen it behind a separate brand, a single brand, across the business. Because I believe we are one company with one strategy. We can't be 10 companies with 10 different strategies. We don't have the resource, we don't have the financials, and our consumers, from a loyalty perspective, will be confused. To answer your question, though, Gara, we have a long way to go in food, and the consumer is much more demanding. We have to be innovative, and we have built a relationship with a company called Wonder, who have worked in the industry before and are new to it, who bring real chefs into it to develop the product range, etc. And we have actually rolled out two or three of those sites, and it's really top quality. And I always ask myself, what is stopping people coming to our stores and buying their dinner in our stores, a steak, whatever it is? And that is what this brings to us. Um, we have a wide range of consumers, and we need to be careful that we don't kind of think we're the target audience. Sometimes we need to understand the target audience. But the short answer is we need higher quality, we need better service, and we need more innovative products. And that's what we're focused on. And if you said to me, where are we today? I'd say we are 50% along that journey. We have at least 50% to go.
I love that answer. And it's really, when you think about the growth of food service, what you're describing, sounds really along the lines of pioneering of food service within the convenience store industry. It's what you're describing is elevating it to a different level than what you typically find in a convenience store offering here in the United States. And from at the Mosley Group, we are always looking at other industries and other global industries for inspiration, whether that's grocery or markets, or
Yeah.
looking at some of our restaurant clients and some of those most successful drive-throughs and things like that. And how do we apply some of these learnings within the C-store segments? And I'm curious, do you, based on your background that's so diverse, I would imagine that you really look at multiple industries, for inspiration and learnings, more so than just kind of sideways looking at other convenience store competitors. Is that true in your thinking?
Yeah, look, firstly, let me say I have huge respect for our competitors in this, but I think the job we have as leaders in this industry is twofold. One is we need to be the disruptor rather than disrupted. And I think we often spend our time being a victim, whether it's around tobacco, around fuel, etc. And therefore, we're sitting here waiting to be disrupted. I believe we can be the disruptor. Um, I think the second piece of this is that actually the customer that chooses to buy food in the evening doesn't look at my competitors. It looks at the whole market and what they need to decide. And therefore, we have to be the best, not better than our competitors. We have to be better than the other options that are available. And the question we always have to ask ourselves is, are we happy by being, the ones where that for the hot dog or for the sandwich? Or do we actually really want to go beyond that and actually service the customer to be able to meet their needs across the piece? That the quality is there so that they will actually not just stop for a hot dog or for a sandwich or for pizza, but actually start and look at us as a real credible option around food. And to do that, we have to change. We
Mm-hmm.
can't be, this little shop, this big shop, this little shop at the back of a gas station. We have to be a destination. And so, that's around the quality of our sites, that's around the quality of our staff, that's around the quality of our product. And it's around the innovation around our product as well. And so all of that, you go back to your very first question, Harry, that's around culture. That's not
Mm-hmm.
around strategy. We know what the strategy is. That's around where are the heroes of our business? The heroes of our business have to be at the front line. And that's an easy thing to say, but actually, if you're sitting in the company, why do people not want to be store managers? Why do they want to be in head office? It's
Mm-hmm.
because we don't make the heroes out of the store managers. And so, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do around food service. That's what we have to do around where our investment is.
Yeah, I think that those are really great points, and I'm curious. Some of those attributes that you talk about with food service, from our perspective, sometimes it even starts from the street. As you're driving by, and as what are those perceptions, and one of the characteristics that starts to raise your eyebrows and maybe make you a little bit hungry as you're driving by this convenience store. And I'm curious, do you think about how that impacts the exterior design and signage and the canopies and things like that? Is that something that as you evolve your food service platforms, does that impact other areas of the store, like design?
Totally. I mean, absolutely. And, one of the things that we're trying to do at the moment is to take our 10 brands and to bring one company together that says what's the best of all of it in terms of the design and in terms of the offer. And I think also, one of the things we need to remember as well, and I think it's a huge advantage for the convenience store industry, is we can be localized. We don't have to have one menu everywhere. Somebody sitting in the cold weather here in Westborough in January and February is going to have a very different need to our customer sitting in West Palm Beach. And why are we offering them the same products? Why are we offering them the same design? So we have to have that localization. We have to have that understanding of the local consumer. as well.
So one of the things I used to do, I worked at NACS before this, but one of the big things that NACS always pushed, National Association of Convenience Stores here in the
Yeah.
U.S., was industry image, and that's exactly what you're talking about. I mean, you're really heralding across the industry because all it takes is one bad tomato at a convenience store to make someone sick, and then the whole America's all over TikTok talking about how you can't eat at a convenience store, don't eat at a gas station. So it's everything from food safety to outdoor safety, which is where you're talking about lighting and everything else coming in, but it's just really lifting the entire image of the industry up. That's important, I think, and I like how you're doing that.
Thank you. I also I just want to go on with something that I feel, and this is something I bring from other businesses rather than from the convenience, which you talk about safety, and it's not just about food safety. One of the things I was shocked about when I came back, I spent 20 years nearly of my 40 years working in the US, but I was gone for a few years. And one thing I was shocked about when I came back was safety. Not food safety, but safety. Violence towards our staff, safety,
Mhm.
etc. And, you know, how we as an industry were not tackling it enough. Um, we have, one of the things I'm most proud of in the last 12 months is we have reduced our safety instances by over 50%.
Wow.
And that's about, it's not just about having a clean site, but it's also about making sure the consumer walking into your site feels safe and that they feel safe walking out of that site in the same condition that they walked in. No trips, no slips, no falls, no violence, nothing, no issues in the restrooms, etc. And so, as an industry, yes, we have to improve our food, but we have to improve our image. We have to stop, arguing about EVs versus fuel and actually become a big thinking thought leadership industry that says we are around mobility. We want to make sure you get from A to B as safely as you can, as quickly as you can, and we will meet all your demands, whether it's food, whether it's fuel, whether it is, charges for your phone. We will meet that. And there's nobody else who can do that. And then once you have that consumer, once you have that relationship of trust with that consumer, that is when you can expand your relationship with the consumer. You know, my drive in this company is I believe as a disruptor, we can be the food for later. We can be that connection. I don't know many consumers who love going to big box retailing and spending their day, 2 or 3 hours walking around. Why can't they do that through the internet or through us? And then for us to have the quality of top up and of food that actually allows them to get on their journey and to get from A to B and have the value of time. That's through our loyalty platform. So we know individually the customers and the demands. It goes to the localization of we know this community better than anyone else and we service the community. And it's about innovation. One of our strategic objectives, and we only have 5, is that at least 20% of our gross profit in the next 3 years will come from products and services that we do not offer today. And that is not around having a large candy bar when we have a small candy bar today. That's about having totally new products and services that we haven't even thought about today.
What are some of those 20% that you're thinking? You don't have to give away any secrets, but I know we've talked about food, but what kind of food?
Look, I come from just on the giving away secrets. I come from a business that says, let's increase the pie for everyone. I think I can learn from my competitors, from Murphy's, from Wawa, from Sheets, from Casey's. I think they're great companies. As a company, we want to have confidence with humility. We want to have a confidence in our strategy, but the humility to learn from others. And so our job has got to be to increase the pie. If I'm just trying to take my competitor's share, that isn't good for the industry and it's not good for our consumers. it just ends up in a war. Yes, of course, I want to be number one in the industry. No problem. We all do. But actually, what I want is this industry to flourish because we'll all flourish. And so when we talk about the ideas, I think it is a lot about services. I think, the demand for healthier options really, really talks to new products, new services. I think for me, food for later, how do we partner with people? We are a big chain. We're the fourth largest, but we're only 1,600 sites. We have to build relationships with people outside the industry who can bring innovation and support across this, and we can bring it to them. That's how we move this forward by working with others to give services, by talking to our consumers and saying, what is it that frustrates you? What is it if we can offer these that actually it brings it forward? So new products in food, absolutely. New food services, absolutely. But new services as well. Can we do a concierge? Can we, offer, you know, all our buildings are one floor. If we put a second floor, could we give people time and space to work and to actually create an environment like that? Can we facilitate stuff in the community? What services are going to be available, that people are looking for in 3 years' time? COVID talks to us about disruption. What is the next disruption? Hopefully it's nothing like COVID, but what's the next positive disruption that allows us to actually be there for people? The gift we have that Amazon, that Google, that everybody would die for is our locations, and they can never take them off us. So how do we leverage those locations much more than what we're doing today?
So cool. So cool. One of the things that you talked about early on is, and we don't have to go into great detail, but you said you're launching a new loyalty app. Without going into great deal about what it is it more than just loyalty?
Yeah, it very much. I mean, this is about, um, you know, person to person engagement with the customer. It's using AI to understand not just what you want, or what your behaviors are, what the localization for our business is, how we engage with you, and how do we make your life easier. AI is a very powerful, and we all throw out AI as, okay, well, there's your answer. AI is the answer to every question. It's not. It's a facilitator to actually allow us. And so, what I really hope this loyalty platform gives us is intimacy with our individual customers to be able to deliver what they want and to be actually able to make their lives much easier by being able to predict what they need.
Being convenient.
Exactly. Perfect summary.
Well, I don't even think I could have wrapped that bow around that one any better than you just did about the whole just making the convenience industry even more convenient. So, John, I really thank you for joining us today. Harry, you as well. I think this has been a great example of really just diving into the whole industry image. I really love how you want to bring everybody with you while also making your stores the best destinations they can be. And I look forward to stopping in some. I usually head up this summer up your way. So I'll be stopping in for sure, and then look forward to just seeing the changes over the years to come. So, John, Harry, I appreciate your time today. I wish you the best going forward, and I hope to have you on in a couple of years. We'll hear what you're up to. Sound good?
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Always welcome to join you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, listeners, for joining us today. Go ahead, if you haven't taken a minute, just make sure you subscribe to our show to hear every time one of our new episodes comes out every other Tuesday. And also take care of yourselves, and thank you for listening to The Future of Convenience. You've been listening to the Future of Convenience podcast, produced by Dan Munford, Nick Scherzer, Jenna Ferguson, and Lorraine Evans. It is produced, edited, and mixed by Carolyn Schnare, and music is provided by Jukebox Music. Learn more at globalconveniencestorefocus.co.uk.